In the spring of 1940, the world just watched, completely stunned, as one of the world's biggest military powers was just brought to its knees. And not over years, but in a matter of weeks. The fall of France, it wasn't just another defeat, it was a total cataclysm that nobody saw coming.
And just listen to the confidence they had at the time. In 1939, the French High Command, and really pretty much every expert on the planet, believed the French army was the best in the world. They were absolutely convinced they had the gear, the forts, the morale, to win any war Germany could possibly start.
And yet, it took just 42 days. That's it. 6 weeks for that supposedly unbeatable army, along with all its allies from Britain, Belgium, and the Netherlands, to be completely and utterly smashed. 42 days.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth did this happen? Well, that's the mystery we're going to unpack today. It's a wild story of flawed plans, a brilliant, risky gamble, and one single desperate battle that, believe it or not, changed the entire course of the war. Let's dig in.
Okay, first things first, we gotta get inside the heads of the Allied commanders. Their whole strategy was based on the last war, World War I, and it all came down to one massive assumption about what the Germans were gonna do.
The official French playbook was something called methodical battle. The main idea was simple: avoid chaos. They wanted a fight that was tightly controlled from the top, where they could prepare everything meticulously and then just use their superior firepower to grind any attacker into dust. It was literally a plan to refight and re-win the battles of 1918, not some new kind of war.
And there was a really good reason they were so cautious. France had a serious numbers problem. With a much smaller population than Germany, they just couldn't afford to lose millions of men like they did in World War I. So their entire strategy was built to save lives by fighting a long defensive war.
And that brings us to the famous Maginot Line. Now, a lot of people think it was a failure, but that's not really the whole story. It wasn't supposed to be some unbreakable wall across the whole country. Think of it more as a strategic tool. By locking down the German border with these super forts, France only had to use about 15% of its army to guard it. That freed up all their best, most mobile divisions to go meet the main German attack, which they were absolutely sure was going to come through Belgium.
So here was the grand strategy. The Dial-Breda plan. The moment Germany invaded, the best Allied armies would swing north into Belgium, set up a strong defensive line along the Dial River, and fight the big battle there. This way, the fighting stays off French soil. But look at that last point. That is the single bet their entire plan was riding on. The idea that the hilly, dense Ardennes Forest was totally impassable for a modern army.
Here's the kicker, though. The Germans knew exactly what the Allies were expecting, and they came up with a plan specifically designed to turn that expectation into a gigantic trap.
They called it Sickelschnitt, the sickle cut. It was a super high-risk, high-reward plan, pushed by guys like General von Manstein and Guderian. The idea was brilliant in its simplicity. Give the Allies the exact fight they were planning for in Belgium, but make that whole fight just a distraction. The real knockout blow would come through the one place they thought was safe.
So here's how it played out. A big German force, Army Group B, slams into Belgium. This is the matador's cloak, right? Waving the red flag to draw the bull. The Allies, well, they take the bait. They rush their best armies north, just as the Germans hoped. But meanwhile, the main German force, Army Group A, with almost all the panzers, is secretly punching right through the impassable Ardennes. They cross the Meuse River, get behind the Allied armies, and then just sprint for the coast. The sickle swings down, and the best armies of the Allies are trapped.
And just like that, the trap is sprung. The crazy part is, the French plan worked perfectly, which is exactly what sealed their fate. The Germans had hit them right where they were weakest, using the Allies' own strategy against them. Their best forces were now totally cut off.
But the story doesn't end there. It actually gets even crazier. With their main armies caught, the Allies threw together a small, desperate counterattack near a town called Arras. Tactically, it was a failure, but it ended up having strategic consequences that nobody, and I mean nobody, could have predicted.
So at Arras, the British rolled out these heavily armored tanks, the Matilda IIs. Imagine being a German anti-tank gunner. You open fire with your standard gun, and you just watch in horror as your shells literally bounce off the armor. But the Germans adapted, and fast. They started using their big 88mm anti-aircraft guns against the tanks, and at close range, they were absolutely devastating.
And this wasn't some distant battle on a map for the German commanders. General Erwin Rommel himself was right there on the front line, helping direct the fire of those 88s, when his own aide was shot and killed right next to him. So even though the British attack was small, it was ferocious, and it sent a wave of pure shock and fear through the German commanders on the ground.
And in that shock, in that chaos, Rommel made a critical mistake. He massively overestimated the enemy. He reported back to his superiors that he wasn't being hit by some small group. No, he said he was being assaulted by five full divisions. That single piece of bad information was about to change everything.
That one panicked report from Arras kicked off a chain reaction in the German high command that led directly to one of the most famous events of the entire war, the miracle of Dunkirk.
I mean, the sequence of events here is just unbelievable. Rommel sends his exaggerated report on May 21st that convinces the German high command that their panzers have gone too far, too fast, and are in danger of being cut off. So on May 24th, they issue the famous halt order, stopping the tanks in their tracks just miles from Dunkirk. That 2-day pause was the miracle. It was just enough breathing room for the Allies to scramble, set up a defense, and start the evacuation.
And the result of that pause? Operation Dynamo. In this incredible feat of improvisation, a massive fleet of naval ships and tiny civilian boats managed to evacuate 338,226 Allied soldiers off those beaches. It was the core of the British Army, saved from being completely wiped out, all because of a German decision born from the fear created at Arras.
So when you look at the whole story, the fall of France is just this cascade of ironies. A perfect plan that created the perfect trap, and a failed attack that, thanks to pure panic, led to one of history's most incredible escapes. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many of history's greatest moments weren't planned at all, but were just an unexpected reaction to fear?